Good to see you all. So I'm gonna play like just like a short music. I hope you guys can hear it. We got while our audience like comes on, we are live, Cyber Power of Tigray, 7 p.m. West Coast time, 10 p.m. East Coast. One of my favorite Tigrinya songs. All right, you all, welcome. Good to see you. So let's see, we were here last Thursday talking about what's going on in Tigray. All right, so I've got, I guess, you guys are not guests anymore anyways. You guys are like, we're a family now. So we got Senai, we got Yerusalem, we got Martha, we got Adela. I am your host. So we are live from the West Coast. Somebody jump right in, please. Do a quick introduction, but this is Cyber Power of Tigray. We are again live talking about the genocide in Tigray. We're going to cover like various topics, so bear with us. To the audience, I know you're trickling in, but as you come in, if you have productive, respectful question, I will pick and throw it to my audience. Let's keep it civil. Let's be respectful to one another. We want to hear your opinion. We want to hear what you have to say. But those of you who are becoming extremely extreme to the point where you're insulting, I'm probably going to start blocking you. So no matter who you are, be respectful, criticize respectfully. Anything beyond that, a direct threat, harassment, you're going to get blocked. So I've been doing pretty good, not making sure not blocking you guys. I've been actually giving you a 5-minute pause. But if you, as an audience, if you have the ability to be polite and discuss with us your questions, concerns, and whatnot, that's what we're here. So these young leaders of tomorrow for Tigray, they're here to hear you. They're here to answer questions that you may have. But first, we're going to start off. Who wants to go first about the protest? How do we do a Friday, guys? Go ahead, unmute anybody. Sanna, you in? Fadila, you in? Yerusalem, you in?
I would say collectively.
Hey, go ahead.
All right, I'm not doing a good job, so I'm going to say Yerusalem. Go ahead, please. I'm going to do better in making sure, like, you know, monitoring, like, and making sure you guys have turns.
I think collectively as a Tagaro community, not just nationally, where it was more heavily presented, but also with the protests happening in Germany. I know that in Frankfurt, I believe they did an airport protest. I know Perth and I believe Sydney also really made some noise and did, I think everyone is kind of, utilizing different means of protests. In Australia, maybe it was Sydney, that they did like, you know, the body bags that to represent the number of deaths that have been as a result of this war, specifically of civilians. In Perth, they took, or in Frankfurt, I believe, they went to the airport and kind of demonstrated that way. I think we're being like pushed to think more creatively, mobilize in larger ways, and seeing everybody collectively, you know, thousands upon thousands come together for a joint cause was really empowering. I saw a lot of coverage get picked up, and, you know, a lot of curious eyeballs and wondering what is happening, and a lot more people are getting educated as the time passes, and that's really our responsibility as activists to keep educating people so we can bring about an expedited change for
So
our
I'm
people
gonna
back
have
home.
Sen, I'm gonna have you jump right in. Like, why are we doing this again? Remind our audience.
So our main goal is to stop the genocide in Tigray, stop the war in Tigray, make sure our people are safe, make sure the invaders are out of, you know, our future country, right? So that's our main goal. So we need, you know, we're fighting every day, and the protests and the other activism and the other campaigns are all to make sure that our family and our friends back in Tigray are safe, and are not under the constant, you know, threat of the unelected Ethiopian government.
Thank you. I appreciate you keeping it brief. So Martha and I were together like Friday protesting. Man, I'm gonna let her go like, you know, next, but before Martha goes in, I'm gonna let Fidel like tell us about Seattle and everything else. Martha and I have a lot more to share with you guys. So Fidel, go ahead, please.
Seattle really showed out. You know, we had a really good turnout. I was really proud of our community. A lot of people came. We recorded the entire event pretty much from beginning to end. And I know we have some people working together to create a video to advertise our next protest, trying to find different ways of getting the word out there about the protest so that we can get even higher show outs. After that protest, me and 2 other protesters actually went to a Black Lives Matter protest, and we handed out flyers to the people that were there, and I gave a speech letting them know what was going on. And, you know, I connected and networked with some people there. So now I know some people in the Black Action Coalition who are going to advertise our next protest on their social media, you know, and I was able to, you know, you know, there's a couple of different things we realized we need to do better at. So, you know, we realized we could also bring flyers to our own protests, so that we can hand out to people on the streets, especially for the older people in our community. It's kind of hard for them to answer questions when people stop and ask them like, hey, what's this about? So this is something that they can just hand out to people, and, you know, let people know as we're walking down the streets. You know, we can get stickers made that say Stop War on Tigray with like a QR code, put them up everywhere we go as we're walking down the streets. So it'll give people, you know, who are walking by the opportunity to kind of also see it after we're gone and we're not there anymore. So things like that we're trying to think of, like your Saddam said, to try to think more creatively. So we're just kind of, you know, going down that avenue and trying to figure out ways we can make, you know, we can continue to spread awareness, because like we said, the goal is to end the war. So we're just trying to find different ways to get the word out so we can make that happen.
Excellent. So Martha, I know that I was there in Portland. I thought Portland and I mean everybody, you know, West Coast, I mean Denver, Vegas, I mean everybody, you guys, I mean it was awesome, seriously. Like I watched a lot of the clips. I did a lot of the recording myself in Portland, obviously. I even did some of it on Cyber Power of Tigray Live. So Martha, how do you feel? I mean I saw it, but tell us you feel, and the fact that we got the media to just like be able to air like Portland, Oregon.
Yeah, our protest was really successful. It was really amazing. We were able to have some coverage, as Mike said. We were able to go to the news station and go out there and demand that they record and give coverage to what's taking place. Everything went really well. The chants were all very, very clear. At first, I was a bit worried because we have a really small community out here in Portland, a really small Tagato community, but everybody came out, and it was just amazing. And our whole point is to get coverage and for the U.S. To take action, and the UN to take action. And in order for people to know about that, there needs to be some kind of coverage. So I was really glad that we got a little, and this is just the beginning. So, you know, things will get better.
Absolutely. And I would add to that, we had some Eritreans and some are from the Roma community. They came out. They came out. In fact, some of them actually like spoke. But what was beautiful was that they made sure that the Aroma people, the Eritreans, told us, no, that no person with human decency, with decent heart, decent mind, supports the atrocity. And they were like, it's almost, they were apologizing to us also, as almost like they were doing something wrong. So it was, for me, I was so grateful to see those individuals who came out to support us, and they were sincerely feeling sorry just the same way. But you know what? We're gonna get through it. We have, we have each other's back. Tagaras all over the world. I have never seen this much of a unity, speaking just like one voice. Don't matter what age, what gender, what religion. I mean, it's like, I just love it. So with that, we're talking genocide in Tigray. There's a lot of crises that we can talk about. So the very person who declare the war on civilians, on the people of Tigray, his name is Abiye Ahmed. We know that. He's supposed to be a prime minister of Ethiopia. He refused to hold an election back in May. We've said it before, but for those of you who are new to the show, an election is supposed to take place in May of 2020, and October of this year, October of last year, let me get my story here correct, should have been inaugurated, whoever would have been elected. That didn't take place. At the regional level, Tigray held its own election, has nothing to do with the federal system. Just like here in America, we get to elect our own state representatives, state governors. That's exactly what Tigray people did. The Tigray of Ethiopia elected their regional leaders to run their home state of Tigray. And in return, we had multiple countries going against Tigray, over 500,000 troops deployed to what? And my question for you guys, maybe I'll start with you, Fidela. Where's Abiy Ahmed? What's going on? Where are the Ethiopian leaders?
That's a great question. I think that they are embarrassed and they're ashamed to an extent, because they think you can't do the things that you're doing and not realizing how bad they are, unless you really have no soul, which I honestly wouldn't put past them. But they're cowering in fear is what my assumption is. They sat there and said that we can't have an election because of Corona, and then they turned around and waged a war at the same time. And then they turned around and said that we can still have a marathon, one of our biggest events in Ethiopia, despite the fact that we're still in a pandemic. They didn't do a major vaccine rollout or anything like that. They did nothing to change the status of what it was like when they first said that we can't hold the elections to now, but we can still hold major events. We just can't host elections, but we can still bomb people and, gather as a community. So they're hypocrites is what they are, and they know that much about themselves, and they know that they can't show their face, and that if they do, the world's going to tear them apart. So that's my assumption about where they're at, but I honestly couldn't tell you. I wish I knew, because if I would, yeah, there's something we could do.
It's true. Cowardice. Sanai, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. Yeah, they're doing that great Ethiopian run, which I think is kind of funny. Like Fidel said, like the whole reason that they postpone elections and the reason that they're calling us the junta, which they pronounce junta, is because of COVID, right? So, as we probably have all heard, COVID is raging in the Tigray region because, of all the atrocities that are happening to our people right now. And despite all of this, they're just acting like nothing's, even going on, like having this fun run, forget COVID, no issues. And as far as the prime minister goes, and as far as where he might be hiding, I think just from recent things that we've heard, or at least I've heard, with how the war is going, it's not looking good, especially for the Eritreans, for the Ethiopian forces. It's not really looking good. And I think that he is in a position right now where he doesn't know what to do. And, especially with the news coming out, they've tried so hard to keep all of this information inside, right? But the rapes and the murder and everything is coming out, right? And the West kind of knows, they've been exposed. This is not a law enforcement operation. People know that now. So I think they're trying to get a control on the narrative, and they can't. And so at this point, like, it's like, what do? You just hide? Or, well, I mean, for him, a real man, a real person wouldn't. But for Abiy Ahmed, I think the best thing he thinks to do right now is just hide.
Well, and they had a African Union meeting like within the last like couple of days. Typically, as the head of the states in Africa, as an
Right.
African Union, he wasn't even absent from that. But wherever he's hiding, coward, simply coward.
Yeah.
Jerusalem, like, you want to jump in real quick and see what you got for us? Obviously, there's tweets also going on about the failure of the Ethiopian military and the Eritrean military in Tigray, that they obviously pretend that they have control over, and they get attacking military vets who have retired years and years ago that are in their late 80s and early 90s. But jump in, and then I'll circle back with everyone else with another topic that I have.
Yeah, kind of like what Fadila and Senai said. Abiy Ahmed is largely absent from the media, and especially in a time even beyond the war on Tigray. It seems like Ethiopia is facing several geopolitical crises. We see what's happening across the border in Sudan, and it seems like Ethiopia is generally trying to underplay what's happening there. And then even with the dam disputes continued to be like a stall, with expected filling was supposed to happen relatively soon this year. And not addressing these things is kind of leaving Ethiopians in general in the dark about what's happening and the fate of the country. I know you guys mentioned the Great Ethiopian Run. It's a lot of just kind of positive play. They're doing a lot of things like arrests just to show that, some trying to basically bring everybody in solidarity about essentially distract them. I know yesterday on Twitter, the Office of the Prime Minister tried to push the PDF version of Abiy's speech.
Do you say the Office of the Prime
address.
Minister? I'm sorry. What Prime Minister?
That's the actual Twitter handle name.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, they were trying to push the PDF version of his speech to Parliament. So it's just it's still kind of he's always been, I think, really obsessed with self-image, and in the beginning he got so much praise from the international community. I think that got a little to his head, and as we know, within a couple months he was quickly humbled by the response from not just Tagaru but other ethnic groups throughout the country. So right now, honestly, it's kind of a PR nightmare for them. So who knows what they're doing or what their plans are for the future.
I wanted Martha to jump in and see what her thoughts are, but I have some thoughts I'm going to throw right at what you guys are saying. I could not wait. Martha, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I definitely, just to piggyback off of what Fadila and Senna and Jerusalem said, yeah, Abiy, the unelected dictator and prime minister of Ethiopia, he's really ashamed of what he's doing, because I don't know if it's like a shame because I don't know. I don't really think he cares anymore about his image, because I mean, everything's out in the open, and I think that he's ashamed that everything's out in the open. The information, well, some people were saying, oh, the refugees in Sudan, the Tigrayan refugees in Sudan were lying about their stories, this is false. But now lots of information that was coming from the refugees in Sudan is now coming out in the open. It's not a lie. The looting, the rape, the bombs and everything, troops involvement, it's all in the open now. There's satellite images coming out, and just a lot of people are just sick and tired of Abiy now, and people are starting to talk about the atrocities he's committing. There's so many more and more reports are coming out every single day, and I feel like, I don't know if I can say he's scared, but I think he's pretty scared that the world knows what he's doing. And so like lots of information is coming out, and I think he can't stick with his propaganda. His people can't stick with their propaganda. It keeps on switching and switching. So I think he might be getting overwhelmed or something, because everything keeps on changing.
That's what I'm talking about. It's beyond overwhelming. So we're in America. Obviously, we get to have our First Amendment right protected to free speech, which means I'm seeing like two things, two people. Well, the third evil I'm not going to even consider, because Isaias Afwerki, it's a matter of time. He's going to die soon. He's like old as heck, right? But I'm thinking, look at Donald Trump, look at Abiy Ahmed. What do they have in common? They both lie. And Donald Trump right now, because of what he did recently, provoking massive protesters to go into to Washington D.C., the Capitol Hill, and try to attack elected officials, representative of our home states and whatnot. And Twitter, Facebook, and every social media shuts him down. He is depressed as heck right now. You know what is happening to Abiy Ahmed? In my opinion, I have no idea what's happened to him, but I can just throw in my own opinion. I think the dude is so depressed. He's probably just collapsing somewhere wherever he is, and I hope we never have to see him again. So that's my I guess my quick analysis of what's happening. But Martha, you were pointing out, the genocide, the bombing. Most of Tigray hospitals have been bombed. You talked about the refugee in Sudan. You talked about the rape, the killings in Aksum, and the rape over 700 women in Mekelle. But there's also recently I watched a video. Some folks sent me a link, which I appreciate you guys when you share those links to my messenger. It helps me to like kind of catch a lot of things that I might not catch. But there was a Zoom meeting. The Ethiopian generals were having a meeting, and that Zoom meeting was leaked in that video that I actually listened to myself. For those of you who are following us here, I do speak Amharic and Tigrinya. So if you think you can get away with it, you can't. So my own ear, I heard it, and he was talking how they were hoping to finish up the fighting in Tigray, and then they would go into Sudan and attack the refugees, and they were calling the refugees as thugs, that somehow they're criminals. You're talking like people who are being collapsing because of starvation, because of the killing, because of the atrocity they have witnessed. They have to carry the very weak to get them through the border to Sudan. We have over 60,000 civilians sheltered in Sudan. So they're attacking them, because as it's not enough when you pull 750 people from the church in Aksum and execute them all. When you rape 700 women in the city of Mekelle alone, and publicly, the Ethiopian armed forces publicly say, if we are fighting war and women are raped, he was saying he can understand that why. Somehow it's justified. So if you fight in a war, it should be okay for you to rape a woman as a soldier. I mean, the interpretation of it in Amharic, the way he explained it. Yet he talked about, why are women being raped in Mekelle? We know why. The audience who have no clue the politics in Ethiopia and Tigray, what's happening. Fidel, can you jump in and help me out? Like, let's focus on the rape in Mekelle and the killings from the church in Aksum, and then we'll shift the refugees to Sudan in a sec.
I don't speak Amharic. I didn't actually see that video myself. But that kind of rhetoric is exactly the type of rhetoric that, power-hungry people use. They're sitting there and they try to justify the despicable actions that they do as, like, well, this is just what happens in times of war. What do you expect? And it's victim blaming to an extent. And it's not acceptable when you start to allow one atrocity, you then make room to allow others. And that's exactly what they're trying to do. Is they're trying to frame this narrative and try to justify their actions, but there's nothing justifiable about rape. There's nothing justifiable about murdering innocent people. You can't go around doing these things and then try to act as if it's in any setting, any way going to be an acceptable thing to do. Even as a soldier should be held to a higher, example than we should. Regular civilians. As a soldier, you should be expected to do more for your people and protect your people, let alone go out there and rape and murder and pillage. So for me, that's just it's not acceptable. None of this is acceptable, obviously, but for them to try to sit there and say that it's okay for soldiers to rape because it's war, for me, that's just backwards, because you should be holding your soldiers to a higher standard than that. And then after the war is over, the rape is still continuing, as they've admitted. They don't even know why it's still happening. Why is it still happening? Because you guys are horrible people. You guys have no soul. You guys,
That's right.
you guys are really just horrible people. And when what happens when you have horrible people in the middle of a war? Atrocities on every level, war crimes on every level, and they could try to sit there and justify it, but we know them for what it is. So.
And I'll just say real quick, like that just kind of shows, it kind of goes along with this whole idea of genocide, right? This isn't just some kind of, if this was kind of a political war between some governments, like this wouldn't be the case. People wouldn't want to be purposefully trying to destroy like the mind and the psyche of a person, right? Because that's what rape is. It's not just a thing that soldiers do. It's a strategy. It's something they do to intimidate and break a population, right? So it's not like just this thing that a few soldiers here and there are doing. Like they're doing this like as a strategic thing. And we know 700, but we don't know about outside of Mekelle. Mekelle is one city, 500,000 out of 6-7 million people, right? So if we know about 700 rapes, how about the rest? If we know about 750 killings, how about the rest of the region?
Right, and that's just the known ones that's being reported in Mekelle because that's the only place where it's easily like verifiable, and the fact that the troops have publicly questioned one another. I mean, it was a live video actually. That this is not like something that we're making up. I mean, anybody who Googles like women's rape in Mekelle, it's on every social media and it's broadcasted on Ethiopian television, by the way. So for those, I'm watching the chat room here. For those who are still living like under denial, it is really happening. I mean, literally, this is not a joke. So if you're going to ask a question, what my evidence is, the evidence is that watch Ethiopian television if you wanted to, but listen to what we're telling you. It's based on the fact the word came out of their mouth. Doctors in Mekelle have documented many women, including pregnant women who have been raped, have been speaking publicly, which is why it forced the military to have a reality check. So for some of these individuals have the audacity to question, and this, I mean, think about it, guys, like in this country, I mean, what happens, let alone 700 women, if, just even one, I mean, anybody who's let alone like being raped, but is physically injured at any level, you go to jail. You don't deserve to be around. But 701 city, like you say, of 500,000 people in the city of Mekelle. And how many others are being disrespected and raped? How many young girls and women are actually going through this trauma throughout Tigray? I mean, nobody, I mean, that's why we want independent investigators to go in. That's why we want UN mandated investigators go in. And then we have the massacre in Aksum that just took place, which is a part that I would, give your Sally, maybe you can jump in and talk about that, or the refugee in Sudan that we mentioned, how they would not hesitate to go to a foreign country actually to attack refugees, while the Amhara region actually is currently under attack, or being taken over. So to me, it is interesting how, oops, we lost Yersalim, I think. So I'm going to throw that, Martha, if you want to just jump in until we get Yersalim back.
Mm-hmm. Can you repeat the question just one more time?
It's not a question. It's more like, the fact that they have the audacity to go, they're talking about, they can go to Sudan and attack the refugees, which you touched base on it earlier. I mean, these are like people, displaced from their homes, and they're talking about going to Sudan and attacking them.
Mm-hmm. It really shows how sick-minded they are. Like, how can you bomb refugees? Like, that's just inhumane. They left the country for a reason. They were being bombed. They were being bombarded. They were being assaulted. Civilians were literally being deprived from food. So of course they're going to leave. Of course they're going to go seek refuge in another country. Why would you go and bomb those same people who are leaving because you are abusing them, because they are being dehumanized? It really goes to show. And how are you going to bomb or target like refugees? Like, that's just so sick. And like, it's just I can't even imagine what they're going through. And it's just like crazy, because it really shows that they're really trying to like eradicate Tigrayans. Like, they're really trying to just like get rid of all of us, because how can you try to target a refugee camp? How could you? It's just sick. And I will never understand these people. They're just cowards.
I think I mean, how is it they cannot? Because they're in Sudan, and it's a talk, it's an empty talk, right? Desperation, which is why you're telling before we lost you, I was like bringing the question to you. Actually, the massacre in Aksum, and since Martha covered about the refugee in Sudan, obviously the why is obviously is that the majority of the Ethiopian federal troops who abandoned anyone ethnically based from Tigray went in to fight, and what they got in return is that they got their butt whipped militarily. So when they can't win on the battlefield, they go back and attack civilians, which you talked about earlier, that that Fidel was talking about earlier, about the military should be held at a higher standard. There is consequences for those who are in uniform, who are raping women, who are killing civilians. And we're going to talk about the Eritrean too, by the way, which is the worst nightmare that's happening as we speak, because most of the commanders of Abiye Ahmed and Isaias, what happened? They paid the price. You guys saw just what within the last week, Eritrea lost about 5 of its top generals. 5, and these are the top fighters who basically oversaw the overthrow of Mengistu when the Tigray and the Eritreans fought together for independency, and we saw 30 years of dictatorship in Eritrea. And then within that same period, the Tigray Defense Forces, not only do they manage to kill 5 top Eritrean generals, they also took out 4 or so the Ethiopian generals. And one of the general who's been talking publicly so much from Ethiopia, Bacha Debele, whatever his last name is, I haven't heard from him. I haven't seen him like either. So whether he's not alive, I can care less. But I know the Tigray Defense Forces are, out in the field and defending most of the territory, but they are trying to stay away from the cities to avoid casualties. And the coward militia from the Amhara, the federal army who swore to kill their own citizens, and Eritreans are the ones that are massacring civilians. So Jerusalem, Aksum incident in the last 3 days, the story that we heard, 750 civilians. I mean, how do we explain that? How do we, how could you just even have the audacity to do that?
Well, there's no real explanation, and even hearing that story, realistically, it had happened a while ago, and that's what we kind of heard about on the Joshi being destroyed. That was 2 weeks ago before we got footage. So when we'll get footage or accurate, numbers in terms of casualties, we won't know. And that seems like it's happening even in Humora. We know there was a massacre there, the extent of which we were not sure of, and that's why we push for both humanitarian assistance and for international media to be accepted in, because they always say there's 2 sides and then there's the truth, and that's why especially in a conflict of war dealing with along ethnic lines, it's very important to get some impartial representation to tell the story. So far as I'm concerned, there's no real winners of war, especially when it's our brothers, our sisters, our mothers, our fathers that are being, slaughtered like chickens, as one of the refugees commented. And it's just really sad to see. Realistically, there's probably another Aksum happening somewhere else. And we just don't know. And it's going to take weeks to tell. So we've heard from our families in Mekelle already about what happened. And, that's a very big, populous city. And even if for those that are injured, raped, or what have you, basically humanitarian missions that went to do a consensus to see whether or not what the status was, they're saying that most hospitals are essentially non-operational, and people are advised to buy medicine on their own accord because the hospitals can't keep up with the supply or demand because they haven't been able to restock. So not only are they dealing with the immediate of getting killed, raped, and the trauma of getting injured, there's also no adequate health care to help them afterwards. And that's what we're seeing.
It's, for me, I'm pausing and thinking, but it's sickening. But let me actually say this to all of you out there who are listening, that is concerned about our families back home. Be careful when you're making those calls. Just in the last 4 or 5 days, there has been highly trained special folks sent to Mekelle to simply and purely record and listen every phone conversations. So be careful if you're calling, when you call your loved ones. I get it. I haven't spoken to my family for 70 days. I'm not going to say where they're at. Be careful what you guys post on social media as far as specific locations and who you got back home, who you talk to, because you know what? They're listening to you. They're recording everything you're saying, everything you're doing. So we're going to keep that in mind for the audience. And even for us, we got to be mindful of certain things that sadly, we enjoy our democracy, our freedom in this country, which, it's amazing. But at the same time, we have a dictator, well, he's puppet, who are running the country right now, because my suspicion is that he's probably in some kind of coma right now, because the atrocity that he's put the country, the region of Tigray in, I think has knocked him out. He's somewhere in coma. And I hope he remains wherever he's at. I think his disappearance would hopefully maybe turn something positive for some decent people, if there are any, to stop this genocide, for Eritrea to pull its troops out of Tigray. I mean, who in here has a doubt that Eritrea not only is not involved in Tigray, but is actually stealing every little thing that Eritrean troops can find, including like shoes? I mean, seriously, this is not a joke. These guys come to Tigray to fight with flip-flops, and then they swapping those out into like boots. How disgrace is that to the Eritrean people?
I think it's like really unfortunate. Somebody came on. I don't know if you guys follow Humanitarian on Instagram, but that's like Sally Shakur down in Denver, and they did a live where they brought someone on whose mother had been stuck. And I won't say where, but she had been stuck in Tigray since the war started, and she recently was able to come back within a couple weeks ago, come back here. And of course, she's here now, so she was able to kind of tell them everything that had happened. And some of the things that the Eritrean soldiers are doing was just horrific, right? I mean, it was like pure gluttony, taking blankets, taking baby formula, doors off their hinges, cattle and sheep and anything like that. They would just slaughter them, and they wouldn't even eat them. Some of them might eat, one leg from a sheep or a goat and just kill it so it cannot be eaten or destroyed or burn it. So it wasn't even just for themselves to sustain themselves to fight. It was just to make sure that, the Tigray people did not have anything to eat, right? So it just kind of shows you the level of evil that they have, like the level of hate that they have for us,
Yeah, and by the I think slip ups by the interim administration in Tigray, and in addition to, I think, international organizations through satellite images, I think it's pretty much at this point widely confirmed that everybody knows. I mean, Tigrayans have been shouting this out from day one, and it was just a matter of time before the truth came out. And now there's almost a sense of carelessness about it. They're not even trying to hide it. Their collaboration, you'll see men in Eritrean uniforms alongside the ENDF in the backdrops of videos. It seems like they're sitting down together, and it was very understood, at least from us early on, that this was always going to be a military alliance between Abiye Ahmed and Isaias Afewerki, and visiting each other's armed bases, Air Force bases, things like that over the culmination of the past 2 years or so. It was just waiting for the day, and we all know that this was something that was imminently happening. And Eritreans are also victims in this war. We know that refugee camps. Specifically, there was 2 where UN hosted health centers, schools have been completely they're non-functional now. There's satellite imagery shows fires. They've been indiscriminately attacked. The few refugees that were able to escape from the refugee camps in Tigray to Sudan have talked about Eritreans indiscriminately shooting at them. So they're very, very much victims to this war as well. They sought refuge in Tigray, and now they're seeing refuge elsewhere, or now they're becoming displaced. They have no food, no health supplies, so they're kind of in the same situation as the rest of Tagaros.
Well, and I think some of them also was picked up, but go ahead, Fidela. Like, you don't have to jump right in.
I was just going to add to that, to the victimization of the Eritreans. The Eritreans who left their refugee camps and kind of left Tigray and into Ethiopia, like the Amhara region, were sent back to Eritrea. And I think that, for me, was like the craziest part of it, because it shows, that Abiye's demonization of refugees who have left Tigray and who have left Ethiopia is a rhetoric that he learned from Isaias. Isaias is a dictator in his own country. For the last 30 years, he's been tormenting his own people, and anybody who leaves Eritrea to seek a better life is a traitor, right? And that's exactly the type of rhetoric that Abiy is now picking up off of him. If you've left Tigray for whatever reason to go to Sudan to escape the war that we've built for you, you're now a traitor. And now, there's these Zoom calls and this rhetoric that's coming out where he's trying to demonize these people who have left just to, save themselves. And a third of them are children. So for them to try to sit there and, add on to this, again, the demonization of these people is sickening, and it affects the Eritreans and the Tagaru alike. To send refugees back to a country that they have fled is just like, it's probably one of the biggest war crimes that they've committed. That's crazy to me. They're a refugee for a reason, like Marta said, and then to just send them back where they came from, or then to attack them at the refugee sites that they're currently at. Thankfully, there's no time limit on war crimes, and this is something that they're definitely going to have to pay for. There's no way you can hide this. The pictures are out. We already know about it, and it's going to be big.
And one thing Mike. One thing I was going to say about what Frida just said, and she's talking about the video that they posted saying that, we're going to go and after we're done with Tigray, we're going to go get the refugees and we're going to attack them. And so in response to that, there was a person. He went over. There's been a few people now who went over to Sudan to go ahead and take aid directly to the refugees. But one of the things that he learned from talking to the refugees there was that there were Ethiopian agents. Abiy's agents were amongst them, pretending to be, but of course, a lot of the refugees, especially from the same town, they know each other, right? So if there's an agent or somebody who's speaking broken Tigrinya, like they know they're not, they're someone else, right? Who they're not actually supposed to be. So, they already have these agents already there, pretending to be refugees, kind of keeping track on them. So it just makes me afraid after seeing that video, seeing that they're going to go and attack them. It's not a joke. They really are planning that.
And that's a sad reality is they could, I think more than anything else, the undercover agent that might be sneaking into Sudan to intimidate and potentially kill, civilians systematically within Sudan, I think is probably going to be their tactic than an actual attack, because I think if they try to attempt to do a full attack or whatnot, I would hope that the international community isn't going to sit there and entertain that. And for that matter, Sudan as a foreign nation. But Senna, you were talking about earlier, and Martha, jump in whenever you feel, because you guys don't have to be muted. Feel free to just remain on mute, jump in between all of you guys for that matter. You were talking about the Eritrean troops, the mercenaries, would chop up like livestock, which, for African farmers, livestock are like their life investment. They don't have money in a bank to buy goods and services. Livestock are their life for food, for trades, and to earn a little money and all those things. It's not cute or funny for me to say this, but is it partly maybe because the Eritrean army has been such starved to death that when they showed up, they just take a little piece because that's what they've known is they They've been given limited amount of food throughout their trainings and throughout their life experience. I know. I mean, that's not a funny joke, but I mean, to me, that's the only thing I can think of.
Right?
Why would you take a piece of like a meat and not take the whole thing? Or does they come back the next day and not share with their comrades and finish it all?
Exactly. It kind of just makes no sense, right? And that's why it's like this whole thing is crazy, right? You know, none of this stuff, you know, we expected some of this stuff. I'm going to be honest, right? I mean, we expected some of these war crimes to be happening, you know, because of the hate that's been levied against us. But some of the stuff, it doesn't even make sense. You're right. Like, why would you just take a piece of the cattle and then leave the rest of it or burn the rest of it? So, you know, just to destroy it, not even take it with you. And see,
I think
and
a large
just,
part of it is to like humiliate and kind of dehumanize and essentially the people, but also to destroy Tigray. I think we mentioned in the last time that it is harvest season. The majority of Tigrayans are agricultural farmers or work like that in some capacity. So a lot of them either had their crops burned or they had to flee, leaving their livestock behind. Realistically, they won't come back to anything. And so we have people who feel, especially the refugees, kind of what they were saying is they feel like they don't have a home to go back to because they don't know what exists for them there. And we know that because of this, there's also inflation of goods and services at the market. And because bank access is limited, how can they go to the store? And we are hearing stories, though, of Tagaru kind of breaking bread with one another collectively in essentially it's kind of in survival mode because people are literally being starved to death. 2.5 million children, just children, are in need of humanitarian aid. What about the rest of the vulnerable populations? What about the elderly? What about the disabled who weren't able to flee and seek shelter? What are they going to do to feed themselves? Tagaru are also in large families, so there's a responsibility for head of households to take care of like younger children. They have no real way to, at that age, help with either food or in any means their family. So we're seeing just an intention to destroy the economy, destroy the people, with no human reason as to why. I mean, this is just part of a huge genocidal campaign against Tigrayans, and that's why we say Tigray genocide. You don't deny humanitarian access for 70 days for war. UN knows how, and they're very familiar with working in active war zones. This is, and Tagaru regional government said they're very comfortable with allowing and they want unfettered access to the people. And Abiy and his government are saying, providing any kind of roadblock as to why that is. But 70 days in need of humanitarian assistance and being denied that, the reality is people are slowly starving.
And that's what we talk about genocide, obviously, because genocide isn't just the numbers we gave earlier about Aksum. It's not just, what we've saw in the Maikadra. And I think to have an entire population on a chokehold, yet you cannot defeat the fighters, the Tigray Defense Forces, military. The world now knows, by the way. I mean, so to me, I don't understand what the end game is here. Clearly, I mean, they're going like after like what 87-year-old like Sabat Nega, for example, who have nothing to do with the fighting, and yet, I mean, it's just to me. So let's circle back, and Martha, I do want you to jump in whenever you feel like it because I want to make sure that you're contributing to our discussion. But so our emphasis has been obviously like social media, Twitters, and all those good things. Why? We keep saying why, obviously, but what more does the world need to hear and to see to really take action? What do we have to do different?
Right, I have that same question because it's like the whole world, they know about what's going on in Tigray. Like everything's out of the open. Like the US, the UN, the international community, they know. Like that's why we're just wondering, why aren't you like taking action yet, We've been tweeting, we've been emailing our senators and our representatives and things like that. So like, what are they waiting for is really my question as well. But it's like, until when? It's already been 69 days Until when will they take action? Until when? Like once everybody has already lost their lives, like what are they waiting for? You know, sometimes I just don't understand why they always like give condolences like after like the genocide takes place and lives have already been lost, instead of just taking action then and there. I don't understand why they always wait. And then when we tell them don't wait until it's too late, they're still continuing to wait. It's already been 69 days. You know, we don't want this to be, we don't want more lives to be lost. You know, lives have already been lost. It's just everything has been documented. You know, I don't know when they're gonna take action. So some ways, I mean, we're gonna continue tweeting. I feel like if we get another like Twitter campaign going on, maybe that can help. Maybe calling calling our representatives and stuff like that for them to take action and things like that. But also continuing to mobilize as well, so we can, you know, continue to get the word out and demand action. But I don't know when they'll take action.
I think mobilizing what you're saying is the exact answer to this is that we are the young generation, the young Tagaru, need to continue the fight. Just what I was saying earlier, the energy, the unity that we have. I think, you know, we need to show the world that we're sick and tired of it. Yep. Seriously, I'm sick and tired of like talking about like how many women have been raped, how many people are being like massacred, you know, how many hospitals have been bombed, how it's been looted. And the starving, like Eritrean are like traitors, the army, get the hell out of Tigray. Same thing with the federal troops. Get the hell out of Tigray. Tigray is not your land. Tigray will never be your land. So if you don't like the way I talk, get the hell out of my town. Leave my Tigray people alone. Life will be good. But don't forget what you're doing today. It'll come back and bite you in the rear end tomorrow. That's not a threat. That's a reality check. So for the young generation, what you've done actually is you united us. You simply, and when we unite, we don't go become violent. We don't play the game that you play. So to some of the chit chat that I'm hearing here, if the Oromos are supporting you, if the Eritreans are supporting you, who's killing you, well, I'm gonna let you guys jump on that because I know who. The Eritreans, there's different between Eritrean people who do not support this war and the Eritrean dictator with his mercenaries who's killing the Tigray people. In fact, the Oromo by far are in the same situation where they want their people to be left alone. There's war going on right now in the south that the Oromos are fighting, as well as the Beshangul Gumas. So for the few who are in a little bubble box that they can't see outside that little box, in 2021, I don't think I have an answer for you, but you guys feel free to jump in there and tell this person who's asking the question if Oromo and Eritrean are supporting us, who's killing us?
Well, I mean, that you mentioned earlier, our fight isn't with the Eritrean people; it's with the Eritrean government. There are a lot of Eritrean people who don't support their own Eritrean government, and you know, back home that's the case, and it's also the case here. We've gotten a lot of support from our fellow Oromo communities, a lot of support from our fellow Eritrean communities, a lot of crickets from the Amhara community. You know, some people have shown up, but for the most part, they have been largely silent, and that's been heartbreaking. So that kind of goes to show exactly what the reality is. The most supportive people that we get are the Oromos, and then we get the Eritreans, and then the Amharas are somewhere, some people support and some people don't. And that's the case back home. I feel like Oromos definitely hear our fight. I think what we hear mostly from the Oromo community is that they felt we didn't support them in their time of need, so they don't feel the need to support us in our time of need. Is some of the rhetoric that I've heard, and that's not always the case. And some people also understand that what's going on right now in the Tigray region has not happened before, either in Oromo or anywhere else in the country, where the Ethiopian government has colluded with the Eritrean government to bomb, starve, and attack, and completely block out telecommunication and everything within one whole region for 70 days straight. That's never been the case. So my response to people who say that is, if that had been the case there, I feel like they definitely would have gotten a lot more support. And that goes to show that our fight and our issue is specifically with the Eritrean government, and as well as with the Ethiopian government and anybody who supports them. If you're a normal person who supports them, if you're from Afar and you support them, if you're from Tigray and you support them, you can kick rocks. But on that note, nobody from Tigray, of course, would support them. We're here for our own people, and we're way too strong and resilient for that. So they can, to the people who don't support us, I'm not here to, you guys got to me before, and I'm not going to let you guys continue to get to me. I'm making peace within myself for how I feel and how triggered I can get, because if you guys don't know, this has affected my family personally. So when some people say things, it can definitely get to me, but I'm healing, and I'm not going to let you guys kind of show that side of me. I just honestly hope you guys can be more open-minded and see the pain and the humanity behind all of this, because people are dying. Humans, children's, innocent people, elderly. The fight is real, the war is real, and it's affecting innocent people. And if you can just wrap your head around that, our conversation can become so much more productive. But if you want to sit here and continue to play identity politics, I'm not here for it. It's not going to get us anywhere, and we're just here to end a war, end a genocide. If this was in the Oromo region, it would be the same mission. If this was in the Amhara region, it would be the same thing. But it's not. It just happens to be in Tigray, and I need you guys to take the identity part out of it and just focus on the humanitarian issue, please.
All right.
After that,
go ahead, Sednai. You guys can all unmute and jump at it, like during the conversation. You do not have to wait for me to say something. Feel free to jump right in.
Yeah, I'll just keep mine short. It's happening in Tigray right now, but it will be, and it is kind of happening in Oromia and Benishangul Gomez. So just because it's not happening in Amhara or other parts of Oromia doesn't mean it's not. It will, especially if they plan in the future, if he's still the leader of the country, if they plan to do something, or they want to have a free and fair elections or anything else, it's going to be the same situation that's happening in Tigray, a law enforcement operation, right? So people should just keep that in mind. They hate Tigray, and that's why they're allowing this to happen. But wait till it comes to you, right? And then I'll just also echo what she said. They can kick rocks.
Yeah, there's that infamous quote where it's like, they came for the blacks and I was silent. They came for the Jews and I was silent. And they came for me and there was nobody left to stand up for me. So, they came for the Tigarus, and it's only a matter of time. You guys can stand up for us now, and we can unite, and we can aim for a better future for our country, no matter what that future looks like. All we know is that it's not this. It's not war. It's not genocide. It's not division, and it's not identity politics. We're beyond that now. It's 2021, and we need to do better.
I saw somebody. Go ahead, Martha.
Oh yeah, that's an amazing quote, by the way. And what goes around comes back around. So what's happening in Tigray is gonna take place in other regions as well. What Abiy is doing, his goal is to eradicate and kill all Tigrayans and dehumanize us. But he's gonna do the same to other ethnic groups, and he's already done that and stuff like that. And he's staying silent when issues take place all around Ethiopia. So it's kind of don't wait until it's too late to say no to war, say no to this genocide, because if you're not standing in solidarity with us now, we don't need you. I'm not gonna say we don't need you in the future, but stand with us now. We'll always stand with everybody else. And my point is this issue, the war in Tigray, I'm not going to say it's going to happen in other regions as well, but it's going to affect other regions as well. And we don't know what Abiy is going to do next to other ethnic groups. We don't know what he's going to do next. So, don't wait until it's too late to stand with us, because we're all for peace.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not to this extent, but this, genocides and mass killings are happening largely throughout Ethiopia in different regions. We've seen it with Oromos, we've seen it against Amharas, we've seen it against Gumus people, and there's, it's really commonplace everywhere, and that's why this needs to bring about attention. Be an advocate even for your own people. I'm seeing a lot of people kind of when we're being advocates for the atrocities that are happening against Tigray, it's kind of a complete, you guys are a disinformation campaign. Ethiopia's great. Look at the birds of Ethiopia. Look at this, even with the whole Rising Ethiopia campaign. And I think to have love for country is to want to make it the best it can be. And for a lot of people, as I mentioned, even before the war on Tigray, I think a day or two, 100 ethnic Amharas got slaughtered. Oromos have been experiencing mass extrajudicial killings. You'll see even in the Benishangul Gumuz, a lot of ethnic tensions, a lot of massacres happening there. So to pretend like Ethiopia is in a great place right now, when we know that rising and escalating tension and violence has been accruing for the last 2 years, should make everyone kind of an advocate, even beyond the war on Tigray.
Well, and the push that we all should be focused also is to build pressure to our politicians here in the United States, where we all are citizen of, is pure and simple. To agree with the United Nations for a resolution to put Ethiopia under sanction. If you put sanction on Ethiopia, guarantee you, well, I think like I was saying earlier, for those who are just joining us, I think Abiye Ahmed is brain dead right now. I don't think he has anything left to lead. I don't think, and that's the sad part. There's no government in Ethiopia. If there was a government in Ethiopia, after 70 days of war, and for those of you who are going to try to jump and correct me, it's 70 days in Tigray, 69 days if you're on the West Coast. So depending on time zone, we're talking about 70 days of an attempt on an entire population of the Tigray people. And I don't know the exact population. I heard 6.5 million, I heard 7 million, I heard 9 million, 10 million. The bottom line is millions of people, okay? Millions of people are in a dire situation, while militarily, they failed like miserably. So for those of you who are quick to say junta or junta, whatever they call it, actually I saw like today, each letter, how they had them. Junta stands for Journey Until New Tigray Arrives. So that was a good one I saw today. So and I saw some like this guy from Tigray earlier talking how like, oh, we should talk about Tigray independence, Tigray nation, and all this. Tigray nation, young Tagaru, right here. We're talking about Tigray nation. We're talking about the freedom of our people, the freedom of our land. We got Tigray, carried Ethiopia for too far. For the past, I don't know how many generations, but it is because of the will and the strength of the Tigray people. So to the Amhara, I'm going to say to you again, man, if you're a good Amhara out there, come on out of that box. Come and protest with us. Speak for the truth. But when you talk about the victory of Adwa, when Mussolini sent his troops, when prior to Mussolini, when the Italians attempted to colonize Ethiopia, they were defeated in Tigray. And the heroes of during colonialism, during Derg, during the Ethiopia-Eritrea War, by far, it is the Tigray people who stood in front of you for you to enjoy the freedom. When Sibat Nega was arrested over a month ago, they tortured him. When his son asked them, he did nothing because this guy is in his 80s. The thing that they've been doing to our people, now you have rumors out there, Eritrean military are switching uniform, wearing Ethiopian military uniforms to blend in. But most of those Eritrean villagers who never travel outside Eritrea are in the military, don't speak Amharic. So it's like the lies that Eritrea military and Ethiopia military has attempted, the deceptions and everything else has failed so miserably. I think I can understand why Abiy Ahmed is collapsing, why Ethiopia is falling apart. So for the Amhara, who's been bragging that Abiy Ahmed is your god, well, ask yourself a question. The people who are being chopped off with a machete in the Beshangul Gumas, is that really worth it for you? The territory that Sudan has taken over, is it worth it for you? Because I don't know. If you believe in Ethiopianness, which is kind of what you're starting the slogan, it doesn't sound to me like a real Ethiopian. Because when you cheer on a killer, you're an accomplice. I'll let you guys jump in.
I'll just say, I think for most people, for at least for most of Gado's common knowledge, right, are people who are not part of the Amhara community, let's say. But everything that TPLF has ever been accused of, right, from A to Z, over 27 years, right, and some of it that might have some credence. A lot of it is just kind of is based on just like hate for Tigaros. But if we take it to all be true, everything that they've said or they've accused the old government of, Abi's done the exact same thing and much worse in just 2 years, right? I mean, everything from arresting journalists, political dissidents, um, to killing innocent protesters, everything that TPLF has ever been accused of. Abiy done exactly the same thing in 2 years. The only thing that he hasn't done is all of the economic, economic infrastructure, the growth, any of the positive stuff that TPLF has done. Abiy's reversed it in his time. The Prosperity Party has reversed all of those things, right? And one more thing I'll say about those things that people try to accuse the TPLF of. If you want to accuse the TPLF of anything, go ahead and accuse the Amhara, the OPDO, the Southern People's Party as well, because it is the EPRDF, it is not the TPLF. TPLF is one out of 4 parties, right? So people just to kind of skip over all the other parties that had a hand in it, right? That were their representatives, right? So as if they didn't do anything and as all TPLF, like, where's that coming from? And so I just hope that when people are saying that they're freeing Tigray from, and TPLF is the reason we have all these issues in Ethiopia, everything that you're accusing them of literally has happened in the past 2 years by Abiy, and it's been documented, right? It's not something that the Tagaro media is claiming. This is something that that all media is claiming. It's not even claiming; it's proven, right? I mean, so it's like, I don't know. I'm kind of confused. Make it make sense.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody here is ignorant to some of the things that TPLF has done. They I think we are able to condemn a party at the same time recognize that they're the better option for the country. As in, like at the end of the day, they've done more good that they've done bad, and I think at the same time we can still acknowledge the bad that they've done and condemn them, and still aim to do better. And that being said, the issue is I'm not feeling that's reciprocated. People look at Abiy as if he's some sort of savior. The message that I've been getting from them is just wait. He has a plan. It's all going to be okay. It's all going to be okay. Just wait it out. And I'm like, wait, what out? The murder of my people? Like, make it make sense. It's really not adding up. And that's crazy to me because I feel like to 100% support one political party doesn't make sense. At the end of the day, political parties are made up of humans, and humans make mistakes, and humans we're prone to maybe our selfish side, or we all have weaknesses that we can give into. So to 100% say a political party is just the best thing ever and has no faults is ignorant, right? But that's kind of largely been the vibe from these people. It's either complete ignorance or TPLF has done worse. And that makes no sense to me because TPLF has also never completely colluded with another country and waged war on its own people. So how could to sit in that bubble of ignorance is just insane to me, honestly. And I mean,
I'm kind of curious about that too, because I mean, I know at least for myself, within my own family or within people that I know, and I've been to Tigray, people have their criticisms of TPLF. They've always had, even after I became into power, when most Tagaros were kind of uniting under TPLF. And we've always kind of, internally, I've always heard different criticisms, right? Whether or not you like the party or not, right? When I consider Abiy or I consider Haile Selassie or, different leaders like that, I mean, it's just like a unilaterally, like they were perfect, right? And even, I mean, Haile Selassie, you can say that maybe it's back then and we kind of forgot about a lot of stuff that he did that's bad, and that's why he seems so perfect, and he's in pop culture and all those other things. Mm-hmm. But Abiy is right here, right now, so we see everything right here, just in real time happening. So I don't understand how people are arguing that he's perfect, right?
Yeah, those people are truly brainwashed. They really are. And it's funny to me because I've had those conversations with people and people look at me like I'm brainwashed. And little do they know, like I have one parent who's, pretty supportive of TPLF and one parent who's completely against TPLF. So it's like to sit here and call me brainwashed. It's like I've literally heard both rhetoric. Everything anybody's told me, I've, Googled and researched for myself and looked into myself. And every single Tagado person here, youth, no matter what our age, is thoroughly aware of our history. And when we have these conversations with them, we find out that they know nothing. They're completely spewing out the garbage that their parents have spoon-fed them. And you can tell because when you question them or double down on them or tell them a fact, they look at you like, wait, what? That happened? Or that's a thing? And it's like, yeah, that is a thing. That's the fact. Those are the history of our people. And we know it because we didn't forget about it. Our parents taught it to us. And then we went out and we researched it when we were of age. You guys just found out 40 days ago what was going on. And then your parents told you some crap and now you're on the internet spewing it. And you look stupid. So if I were you, I would stop. But, on a more positive note, do your own research, look into your own history. This is Ethiopian history. I mean, at the end of the day, we go back like our history runs so deep. But even when you look back into the last 30, 40, 50 years, a lot has happened. And if you're not well versed on it, you're not able to speak on it, is my personal opinion. So learn for yourself and then you can speak. But that's just me.
Facts.
Yeah, I think criticizing government doesn't mean like you hate your country or anything. If you look at like most of the people criticizing EPRDF, a lot of the members have just been recycled. I mean, Abiy was part of that administration. And what we're seeing is whoever kind of abandons TPLF or any kind of association and joins Abiy, they get essentially a promotion. If you look at, previous Prime Minister Hailemariam Desalegn, one of the things that he said in 2012, right after Meles passed away, was that they brought peace and democracy to the country, and he was going to continue Meles's legacy without change. Seeing it later, he's writing articles about how TPLF is evil, and he's taking pictures with Mengistu Hailemariam, which we know is more than problematic. I think everyone can agree with that. So I think we have to hold people in government, whether it's regional or federal, and even within regional, I think across Ethiopia, a lot of people don't feel like their Prosperity Party representative accurately represents their issues and represents them. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And, openly condemning in the same way that we do in the West, a political structure does not mean that you're against the country. And I think it's a method of trying to silence people. And, like we always say, we give a voice to the voiceless, and we will continue to do so.
So I'm going to show you guys the Australia one, I believe that you were talking about earlier, so that people can see what we were talking about. I think this is what one of you, I think it was you're selling earlier, you were talking about. It was just beautiful. Anyway, this was I believe it was somewhere in the coastal Sydney, Australia. So for those who are confused, for those who are not understanding genocide, these are not like games. These are not jokes. These are like real human lives that we have crisis in Tigray. We are bringing awareness to the world. These people exactly during the protest last week, that's what they did. They brought awareness to the world community. So anybody who is confused, anybody who is clueless, all you got to do is Google Tigray genocide. Look, go to Twitter, go to Facebook, go to Instagram. I mean, whatever site that you want to go, it's all there. So we don't need to sugarcoat it. If you're like proud Ethiopian, you believe in your history, you cannot have the history of Tigray, but not the people of Tigray. Doesn't work like that unless you're naive. So I appreciate you guys. I think I would like us to continue this discussion sometime. I'll reach out to you guys, of course, when we about ready to do our closing statement here. When I end the broadcast, I can circle back with you guys at the end too, but I'm going to let you guys say whatever you want to say to our audience, our people back home and abroad. Our goal here is to ensure, to remind people we have genocide in Tigray. We are going to continue to speak against genocide in Tigray until the Tigray people are free from the invaders from Eritrea and from various part of Ethiopia who's supporting a dictator because Ethiopia does not have a leader. And Abiye Ahmed is currently on coma. Sendai, go ahead.
So what I just want to say is, first of all, for everyone watching, get involved. I've never ever been involved in anything. I mean, I've been involved in Black Lives Matters issues over the years, but otherwise I've kind of stayed away from other kinds of activism. But this isn't about politics, as we all know. This is about genocide, human rights issues, whether or not it's our family or not, right? I mean, of course, it happens to be our family, but we should be interested in these things if even if it's if it was in an Amhara region or if it was in Oromia region, right? So there's a lot of ways to get involved. If you're in any big city or any even somewhat big city, there is an organization, Tigray organization. You just have to find them, and they are doing stuff. So do what you can. Reach out to any of us. Reach out to Cyber Power, and I'm sure they can link you with whatever organization is is organizing in your city. If you can't find an organization, call elected officials. Write to elected officials. Do whatever you can to make noise or spread awareness, and it really will help our people. To our people back home, it's been 70 days. If it goes on for 70 more days or longer, we'll be here every day. We'll be here fighting. We're not, no matter how tired or worn we are, there's no chance that we will stop until this is over and done and our home is free. Thank you.
Thank you.
To piggyback off of that, Sinai, it really is, I can't stress the importance of getting involved. We really need every voice, every body, every sign, everything that we can get. If we're going to shake up the world and really get people to get that international intervention that we're seeking, this is going to be a big movement, and we're capable of doing it. Black Lives Matter, they did what they needed to do, but they shook things up, and we're capable of that. But we just got to put in the work, and it's going to take every single one of us. I know from what Seattle's struggling with, and I don't know if other communities are struggling with, we do have a lot of first generation people here getting involved. We really need the youth and diaspora to really pick up speed. Some things that you guys can do to really get the momentum going, to have sign making events, sign making socials, to get the youth together, to create signs and posters together, and that'll kind of get them more into it to then go to the protests. On top of that, like I said, we could do the stickers, just to, as we're doing our protest, to stick the stickers up on signs and park benches and bus stops and wherever you can, with a little QR code that people can scan and get more information for. The biggest thing I think is that's really going to make a difference is if we directly interact with our outside communities. I know I've said this before, but if you're new or whatever, I'm going to continue to say it. Reach out to individual people, send them the flyer and ask them to post it on their social media. People who are not Tagaru. I need to, people who have no affiliations with Ethiopia whatsoever, Americans, Samoans, Asians, Mexicans, I don't care where they're from. Send them the flyer, ask them to post it. If they're really good at making videos, ask them to collab and come to one of our protests and shoot a video of our protests. If they're an artist, ask them to paint a mural, whatever you can to get them to directly interact, because then they'll share their work with their platform. This is something that I've done myself, and it's working. I'm seeing people that I know with, that I went to high school with and stuff, starting to get into it because I've, grabbed that community and kind of, in a way forced them to get involved, to get that energy going. And once they see, and once they actually come to the protest, they'll realize the issue is nobody really knows. So we really got to work on getting the word out there. Those are just some ways to do it, to really get everybody involved. And for the most part, we're there. Honestly, on that note, I'm so proud of our community. Most of us are out there. It's amazing that how big our crowds are getting. I feel like with every protest, they're getting bigger and bigger. The signs are getting better. The banners are getting out there. We're getting coverage from local news outlets. And we're getting more innovative and creative, like you guys just saw in Australia and Germany. People are trying to do car brigades now and stuff like that. So we're really picking up momentum. I'm so proud of us. I really know that together we are going to save our people. We're going to save Tigray, and the Tagaru people can do it. To our people back home, I'm with you guys. I know it's taking a toll on all of us here in America, but the only thing that's keeping us going is knowing that you guys are going through it more than we are. And anytime we start to feel cold or tired or hungry or sick, we're just reminded of what you guys are going through, and the fire is fueled back up again. So we feel for you, and we're not going to stop until you guys are safe and you guys are healthy, and every single one of you guys is where you're supposed to be. And if no matter how long it takes, like he said, we're in it for the long run. So Jahon, please don't give up, because we're not giving up on you.
And to go off of what Fadila was saying, yes, we got to continue to mobilize. As our youth here, we can start communicating with other cities nearby, talking to people, informing people and everything, and sharing ideas as well. If you see somebody on Instagram doing something in another state, maybe document that and be like, oh, maybe I can do this over here, and just kind of reciprocating ideas and just using them. I saw this thing, I think, I forgot what state, but they're having flyers out and putting them around and things like that. So whether it's that, also informing your teachers, your professors, or anybody near you about what's going on in Tigray, let them know there's a literal genocide taking place and a humanitarian crisis taking place. Inform them, share petitions, share email campaigns, continue to contact your representatives as well. And I have a lot of faith in all like the Tigray communities around the world, whether it's Australia, the UK, and America, everywhere, like that we will continue to mobilize and work together to bring change and to fight for peace in Tigray and an end to this genocide. And if I was to say anything to my people back home, I'm sorry that you have to go through this. It's unimaginable what you're going through. Us Tagaros out here in America and everywhere, we're going to continue to fight for you. We're going to continue to spread the word. We're not going to stop. We're never going to stop. We're going to always fight for Tigray and fight for peace for you and for everybody in Tigray. And that's it. Ajokom.
Yeah, I think everyone's already said it, but just never underestimate the power of you as an individual. And when we come together, we're even more impactful. I think we've shown that even beyond the national protests, just with the coordination of social campaigns, other forms of activism, whether it's petitions, calls to Congress, setting up meetings, things like that. Never underestimate your impact. I've had several conversations with friends who weren't familiar about Ethiopian politics at all, and they're educating them is key. Educating people first so that they can mobilize and join the movement is very crucial. I think we know that together we're very strong, and we're proving that, and we just have to continue mobilizing, never give up. Every day for the past 70 days, it's kind of like living in a waking nightmare pretty much. And 70 days is 70 days too much for our people to be going through this. So we will fight for you. We know what sacrifices you've made for us, and we know what history and legacy you've left for us, and we'll keep fighting for that. We won't stop until there's a stop to the war on Tigray. We won't stop till there's an end to the Tigray genocide. And you're with us in our hearts, our minds, our prayers, and we'll keep fighting for you as you've fought for us in the past.
Amen. You guys said it all. So, to our viewers, I'm going to play like a short music at the end. As usual, I'm going to say it like this. Tagaro. Ayona. Ayohum. Marana khasawru. Hantit itukwas. Hada khalo khnabih. Absarram shanu. Salati. Sawat masilam. Sida khadam sidawasu. Khalashin. أبايتات شكلهم تمصو تانكتات إذا تمصو أير بسماي إذا تمصو 500 شح وتادر إذا تمصو نتقراي كم زي قاصروا رمز زخونت هاجر نقوم ذي تخون مخانا شجنا شجانو تجارو دك أنسيان دك تواتين الميدا زلوا ناي تقراي مكانك يا أمبرك خوم نسألاتي زوم جنرالات نا إرترا كورونا فيروس تقراي ده ولا كورونا فيروس مالي كورونا فيروس يقتل وايد إساياس نحن نسبقن توسخ إن إساياسنا نبي أحمد ويم كورونا فيروس كوس دميو ويم دما نهزري إثيوبيا نهزري تقراي ود زلوا أبي أحمد يدو لبز جبر قدم خاص ده خليو سلازيو أو إثيوبيا زنيكم إثيوبيا وين كونكم تجارو هاي بحكي من النتا حجر نحرت أمن خوينكم حيزي جزيهم نبي أحمد كابت دقفو نبي أحمد قد قارك عيدكم رؤسنا تحتي يقولنا على غيركم أتو وانا قد قار أنا رحيزيو نتا لما مثلا نزاروا يكوننا تقراين تاي مالتي دما تقراي دك جغانيو تقراي مريت نكل سب زقبليو حزب تقراي نكل سب زخبريو زي تروحوا رصحات وتقوم من حزبنا دك انسي حواتنا تلاخفوا زلكم كن رصحاتكم ابزي يسمع هليو هذا حنكاس امام ارتراوي دك انستينا يتغارو مس ارتراوان كتدك ساعه الرخابه تدانكم يتصحافوا بتويتر شيمانيو كابتن إريتريا سمعنا تهليخا صحف كايون ويا مسئنيو ثانك يو يغني لنا دحاوي دقفتنا يغني لنا حزب تግራይ ግን ሰባት ንጋ ኣሲርና ኢናለም ብሕሰት ዘሕለፍዎ ፕሮፓጋንዳ ሕሰት ጥራይ ዘይኮነማ ካሊእ ትራፍ ክልተ ወርሒ ገይሮም እዮም ካብ ኣስርዎም ካብ ገዝኦም ከይዶም ወዶም ተቐቲሉ እዩ ኣብ ኣክሱም ሓሊፍካ ንእሽተይ ቦታ ኣዊና ኣሲርናዮ ረኺብናዮም ኢሎም ሓሰቡ እቲ ናይ በረኻታት ከመይ ገርና ካብ ገዳም መውሪድናዮም ኢሎም ዘውፅእዎ ከዓ ናይ ቀሽቲ ፎቶ ሻፕ ገይሮም እዚ ኢሎም ዝሓሰብዎ ፕሮፓጋንዳ እዚ ንህዝቢ ትግራይ ሞራል ንምትንካፍ እዩ ካሊእ ኣይኮነን ሞራልና ሲ ከመይ ገርና ክንትንክፈሉና ንህዝብና እዩ ህዝቢ ትግራይ ድማ ብዝሞላ ተተንኪፉ ኣይንብርክኽን እዩ ተንበርክኾ ይፈልጥን ኣይንብርክኽን እዩ ስለዚሁ ሞራልና ዝተንከፉና ኢልኩም ተጋሩ ኮይንኩም እንታይ ማለት እዩ ናፅነትና ማእዚና ክነውግዕ እናበለ ዝዛረብ ነበረ ሓደ ሓውና ኣንተወና እምነት እዚ ነገር ስታሽሙ እዩ ናፅነትና መዓዝ እዩ ናፅነትና ትግራይ ንምንታይ ትዋጋእ ትቃለስ ዘላ ኢሉ ዝሓትት ፅዩ ናይ ባዕሉ ጥያቄ ክምልስ ኣለዎ ንሕና ተጋሩ ኣይንጥይቕና እዚ ባንዴራ እናታት ትርእይዎ ትርእይዎ ኣለኹም ድሕረይ ዝኒሄ ባንዴራ ትርእይዎ ኣለኹም መብርሰይ ዝኒሄ ባንዴራ ንመን እዩ ዝድግፍ ዘሎ ንምሓራ ዝድግፍ ዘሎ ይመስለኩም ስለዚ ተጋሩ ኮይንኩም ከመይ ኢልና ኣይና ሃገርና መዓዝያ ናፃ ክንረኽባ ዝዋግኡ ኣለዉ ኣብ ዓድና ጀጋኑ ንስኻትኩም ኣፍ ዋላ ምዝራብ እንተኸኣልኩም ተኸፈትኩም ትግራዋይ ይፈርሕን እዩ ትግራዋይ ይሓፍርን እዩ ዘይሓፍረሉ ድማ ስለ ዘይሰርቕ ዘይናታዩ ስለ ዘይደሊ እዩ ንለይባ ንሓሳቡ ግን ናቱ እዩ ዘርእዮ ዘይናቱ ዝደሊ ዝዕምፅ ዝሕሱ ኣብ ትግራይ መፅኡ ዘይሰርሕ ምዃኑ ባዕልና ንሕና ኢና ንርእዮ ስለዚሁ ድሕሪይዝም ፕሮግራምና እዚ ብእንግሊዝኛ ነቶም ኣብ ዓለም ሙሉእ ዘለዉ ኣሕዋትና ተጋሩ ካሊእም ከምኡ ተጋሩ ዘይኮኑ ንተጋሩ ዝድግፉ ክሰምዕዎ እናበልና ኢና እቲ ብእንግሊዝኛ ብራድካስቲንግ መብዛሕትኡ ዘሕልፎ ዘለኹ ኣብ መጨረሻ ትግርኛ ዝሓውሰሉ ዘለኹ ሓደ ግዜ ከዓ ሓደሽቲ ዜናታት ተልዩ ውፅእ እናበልኩም ከቕርበልኩም ክምኩር እየ ሓደ ክልተ እናገበርኩም ናይ ብጣዕሚ ስራሕና እናበዝሐና ከምዚ ገይሮም ዘመጋይሽ እዮም ሎማዓንቲ ፈዲላ ካብ ሲያትል ያው በብኸተሙ ነውና እዮም እና ሰናይ ንሄ እዩ ካብ ካሊፎርኒያ ኢየሩሳሌም ሓፍትና ንሄ እያ ካብ ነቫዳ ማርታ ሓፍትና ንሄ እያ ካብ ኦረጋን ስለዚሁ ኣየኹም ኣዮና ኣለና ኣይና ኩልኹም ነብሲ ወከፍ ትግራዋይ ዓለም ዘሎ እንኳን ኣብ ናይ ትግርኛ ዝዛረብ ሲ ትግርኛ ዘይዛረብን ኣይዛረብን እየ ኢሉ ዝረስዐ ሃገሩ የለን ኩሉ ትግራዋይ ኣብ ዓለም ካሊእ ትረፍ ህፃውንቲ ቆልዑ ደቅና ደቂ 3 ደቂ 4 ደቂ 5 ዓመት እዮም ወፂኦም ሰላማዊ ሰልፊ ዝኸዱ ዘለዉ እዚ እንታይ እዩ ክብሪ ንህዝቢ ትግራይ ትግራዋይ ኣብ ቃልሲ ዝሞተ ሞት እኮ ኩልና ኣይተርፈናን ይሕዋት ኣይትሰሓቱ ዘይመውት የለን ኢሎሞ እዮም ወለድና ሞት ንሞቱ ግን ኢሎም ብክብሪ ምማት እዩ ስለዚሁ ተጋድላይ ሞይቱ እዩ ህዝብና ኩናት ይውድእ ኣለዉ ብጥሜት ገለት ኣዝዩ ተጋድሎ ይብልዎን እዮም ስሩ ናይ ተጋድሎ ትፈልጡ ሰባት እዚ ኣይኮነን ንሕና ዝብሉ ጠሚና ይብሉ ፀሚእና ይብሉ ሞተ ይፈርሑ በቃ ግን ዝሰርሕዎ ኣሕዋትና ዘሎ ታሪክ ኣይኮነን ንድሮን እናተበሉ ብኣየራት እናመፃ እናውደቁ ናይ ሻዕብያ ወታደር መፁ ክንደይ ዝኣክል ጀነራላት ተሸንዲዮም ተሪፎም እዮም ናይ ኣምሓራ ገደፍዎ እንታይ ተሪፉ ዘሎ ሒዚ ህዝብና ሰላማዊ ሰልፊ ዝገበረ ዝቀትልዎ ዘለዉ ፅባሕ ንግሆ ብሕጊ ሓኒቕና ንኩሎም እዚኦም ክንኣርዮም ኢና እዮኹም ናቶም ግዜ መክመፅ ክወግሑ ይፅባሕ ዘረባን ውሕልኩም ይቅርታ ግን ስረ ናይ ትግራይ ዘይረብሑ ደደባት ዝኾኑ ፈላጢና እናበሉ ኣብይ ኣሕመድ ዝተረእይዎ ኣበይ ዘሎ ብዘለዎ ጠፊኡ ኣሎ ብዘለዎ ጠፊኡ ተስተርፍ ህዝብና ፋይል ምተስአ ነይሩ ስለዚሁ ኤርትራውያን ኣሕዋት ዘለኹም ዓለም ህዝቢ ናይ ኤርትራ ህዝቢ ናይ ትግራይ ብኣብይ ኣሕመድና ብኢሳያስ ኣፈወርቂ መፅዎ ዘሎ ስቃይ ብሓደ ጎኒ ኮይና ከምዚ ተወሳኺ ንውዒሉ ሓዲሩ ዝግበር ዘሎ ሕማቕ ስራሕ እዩ ናይ መንግስቲ ኢትዮጵያ ተዝነብር ነይሩ ከምዚ ተገበረ ነይሩ ኤርትራ ንባዕሉ ናይ ኢሳያስ ገብሮ ዘሎ ህዝቢ ኤርትራና ህዝቢ ኢትዮጵያ ትግራይ ከመይ ገይሩ ተባኢሱ ተባታትዩ ንዘለኣለም ቂም ሒዙ ሰላም ኮይኑ ጎኒ ንጎኒ ከይነብር ዕላማ ተበጊሱ ዝሰርሖ ዘሎ ኢሳያስ ኣፈወርቂ ደሓን ጊዜና ክመጽ እዩ ናብ ኣስመራ ኸይድና ክሳድ ሓኒቕና ንኡ ናብ ባሕሪ ጥሊቕና ምስ ኣሕዋትና ኤርትራውያን መብቶም ተጋሩ ኤርትራውያን ናፃ ኤርትራ ናፃ ድዮ ናፃ ንዩ ዝጥይቕ ትግራዋይ የለን ኣይጠይቕና ኣይንፈልጥን ኣብታ ናፅነት ኤርትራውያን ክሕዝዋ እንተለዉ ደጊፍና ኢና ትግራዋይማ ቦታ ዝጠራጠር የለን ኣምሓራ ግን ለማ ኣንቲ ንሃትኩም ኣዝማድ ኣሕዋት ዕረፍቲ መሲሎም ይቐርቡ ኣለዉ ናቶም ሕማም ግን ዓሰብ ንምርካብ ይኻደ ኣይኮነ ሎሚ ንትግራይ ወቂዖም ፅባሕ ንኤርትራ ምቁዕ ይኻደ ኣይኮነን ስለዚዩ ልቦና ኣየውና ተጋሩ ኣሕዋትና ጀጋኑ ካብ ትግራይ ኢና ንውለድ ተጋሩ ኢና ንተጋሩ ዘሽንፍ ንተጋሩ ዝድምሰለ እንተልና ከዓ ነይ እዚ ትግራዋይ ኣይኮነን ትግራዋይ ዝሓስበሉ ኮነ የለን ልክዕ ሞት ድማ ኢልና ኢና ኣብ ኩናት ግዜ ክሳራ ኣሎ እዩ እዚ ክሳራ እዚ ግን ንሕና ባዕልና እቲ መሬትና ኣይወስድዎን እዮም እቲ ህዝብና ዝጉዳእ ዘሎ ድሓን ናቱ ሕነ ንፈድየሉ እዋን ክህልወና እዩ ንሒዚ ግን ጀጋኑ ተጋሩ ቃልሲ ሒዞም ሰብዓ መዓልቲ ካብ 500,000 ላዕሊ ዝመፀ ወታደር ሰብዓ መዓልቲ ቃልሲ ሒዞም ጠጠመዋሎም ኤርትራውያን ባዕሉ እዚዩ ዘይተኣምኑ ዘይትፈልጥዎ እንተኮይንኩም ናይ ብሓቂ ንባዕልኩም ታሽሙ ድራማ እዮም ዝሰርሑ ዘለኹም ናይ ኤርትራ ወታደር ናይ ኢትዮጵያ ሙሉእ ወታደር ዝኩሉ ድሮናት ዝኩሉ መፅኡ ረይዎ ኢሳያስ ኣፈወርቂ ሓሲብዎ ዝነበረ ግን ንሃተይ ወታደር በይና ኸይዳ ንትግራይ በይና እንተኮይና ድሌት ክሰርሕ እየ ዝሓሰቦ ኣይኮነሉን ስለዚዩ ሙዚቃና ከስምዐኩም የሕፅረ ቢለ ተረፈ የቀኒለይ ጋይሽና ኣፍታ መጨረሻ ታንኪ ብለኩም እየና ንእሽተይ ሙዚቃ ከስምዐኩም በቃ የቀኒልና ኣሕዋት ንውደእ ኣለና ታንክ ዩ ብዙሕ እዩ ግን ሕፅረ ቢልና እና everybody thank you very much good night we'll see you guys again soon we love you all like our viewers we appreciate you keep supporting Tigray will prevail we are the children of Tigray we'll speak for our people those who are dividers who are conquerors will not succeed in our land the land of Tigray the nation of Tigray is being rebuilt you do not have to take my word for it take a look around us just make sure you keep speaking the truth continue to expose those two dictators who are out there like a mad dog but since we haven't heard of the two of them like lately we're gonna figure out a way to get rid of them and bring peace and justice for our people who suffer for far too long so good night everyone thank you very much